for tuning in. I am Zarisha Hackett, the Public Relations and Communications Officer of the Progressive Democratic Patriots. And joining me this morning via Zoom is the Chairman of the PDP, Dr. Sean Ned, the Deputy Chairman, Mr. Andre Cowan, our political leader, Mr. Watson Solomon Duke, our deputy political leaders, Mr. Fali Chavez Augustine, Mrs. Alicia Roberts Patterson, and Dr. Faith B. Israel. Also accompanying us this morning is our General Secretary, Miss Joelle Green, our Deputy General Secretary, Miss Megan Morrison, our Membership and Mobilization Officer, Mr. Akil Abdullah, our Elections Officer, Mr. Leroy George, our Vice Treasurer, also our Finance Officer, Mrs. Tamika Whitlock Labadie. Absent this morning is our Treasurer, Mr. Marlon Rajman. This morning's press briefing aims to provide an update on the current standing of our political organization. It also brings forth our plans for the upcoming THA elections. We will begin with an address from our political leader, Mr. Duke, and then a greetings and address from our deputy political leader, Mr. Fali Chavez Augustine. We'll start with Mr. Duke.
Thank you, for introducing me, Madam Piero, and for all the media personnel who have joined us, those in Tobago, Trinidad, and the wider world. Welcome to the first press conference or press briefing of this type where we have brought the executive to the fore. I want to thank my executive for being part of this morning and the deputy political leaders also. Most of all, I will want to thank the Tobago population who saw it fit on the 10th of August 2020 to come out in their numbers and vote for change. They would have given us the right type of signal, and they have moved our political organization from oblivion to relevance, from nothing to something. It was the first time in the history of PDP that we did contest a general elections. And when I look at the names that were involved in the general elections, I count 16 political organizations. These are big name organizations led by big name people who would have contested big seats throughout Trinidad and Tobago. We would have just contested in Tobago, and in those two seats, Tobago East and Tobago West together, we would have gotten 10,000 plus votes, making us the the third favorite political organization in the country. Tobago, I want to give you a clap. If that is not victory, for some, it is victory for us. It means that there are only two political organizations that are ahead of PDP in this country right now. The first is the People's National Movement, and the second is the UNC. The THA elections that are coming up in January will present us with another opportunity to meet one of those persons or one of those political organizations. It will not be the UNC, it will be the PNM and other parties that are from Tobago as we get ready and set to go ahead and deal with the Tobago House of Assembly elections. I want to assure the population of Tobago and those who are concerned in our diaspora outside that the Progressive Democratic Patriots is well prepared and we are well positioned to take on the Tobago House of Assembly elections. whenever they are called. Internally, we have made a strategic decision to do some moving and adjusting so as to suit and get ready for the battle lineup. And as such, going forward with the Tobago House of Assembly election, as political leader, I have given the right away, I've given my blessings to Assemblyman Deputy Political Leader, Assemblyman Farley Chavez Augustine, to lead in this THA battle. While I am the political leader, my position will be in the back. We recognize sometimes you lead from the front, sometimes you lead from the back, because the face of the front must take on certain responsibility, and those at the back must also take on certain responsibility. It's always good to have a strong attack in football, but it's also good to have a strong defense also. And so we see ourselves as being not bound to the status quo that people will call the political status quo. We are the reinventors of what modern day politics should look like. And I again state to the nation, in particular to the PNM who love to listen to PDP business, that in PDP we are one family, and love has never been stronger in the PDP as now as it has never been before. So we are stronger now, and I will be passing the mantle on to Assemblyman Farley Chavez Augustine, Deputy Political Leader, to lead this charge for the THA. He has my full support, he has my full blessings, and when we would have won more than half of the votes, I asked him for the opportunity to be the first man to move the motion that he be appointed as a chief secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly. Why have I gone to the back? I've gone to the back of the line strategically to play a great role of defense for the workers of this country. The workers of this country are under serious threat by the People's National Movement as they begin to pour austerity measures on us by freezing salaries without coming to us legally, by also making it difficult for persons to access employment opportunities by creating joblessness on the labor market. So that is an important area for myself as a trade unionist to ensure that we do not lose our society while we are trying to govern the treasury. We must be able to maintain a society that is quite alert, a society that is robust, that has the best and brightest, ready to deliver service. And in doing so, I'll be moving at the back of the line, as I say, to ensure that the working class people, they are protected. So at this time, I want to hand over to my colleague, Assemblyman Farley Chavez Augustine, who will be leading the battle. And I said to him, he's in the front, I'm at the back. We have the executive right in the middle and overshadowing all of us. We intend to win this election. So, Brother Assemblyman Farley, yeah, thank you. Your turn, that's it.
Thank you very much, Political Leader Mr. Watson Solomon Duke. And thank you all for democratic us today for the press briefing from the Progressive Democratic Patriots.
Deputy Political Leader.
I want to start by saying special thank you to the party for trusting me with the leadership of the team for the Tobago House of Assembly elections. And when I joined politics in 2017, I never thought for a second that so soon I will be leading a team to take charge of the Tobago House of Assembly. But I am a believer that all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord. I'm a believer in the fact that the steps of a righteous man is ordained by the good Lord. And so I take this opportunity not as anything of my own doing, but really I take it as a significant step in the right direction for the entire island of Tobago. I take this as a privilege, and I take this quite humbly. Tobago is a small island with great potential. In fact, our potential per square mile is perhaps significant than most other territories in the world. Our island is blessed, significantly so. Our island is beautiful, more beautiful than most other islands in the world. In fact, you ask any Tobagonian and we will proudly boast about the beauty of this island. God blessed us with sufficient resources. Everything about this island oozes magic. It was Derek Walcott who famously wrote about our broad sunstone beaches in his poem Midsummer Tobago. Many odes have been written and songs composed about this 116 square miles. But notwithstanding our beauty and charm and our riches, we must admit that we have not always done our best. In the abundance of resources, we often fail to be good stewards. We have deep, rich, fertile soils, yet we are unable to achieve food security and food sovereignty. We have vibrant reef gardens around the island, which serve as a habitat for fish population, yet every week we must contend with unscrupulous fishermen who believe they must exploit as opposed to exploring our reef systems. We have the oldest protected rainforest in the Western Hemisphere. It is teeming with unique plant and animal life. Yet we have farmers still slashing and burning before planting, and hunters snatching baby iguanas from their perch on tree limbs. We sit on beds of natural gas deposits, yet we are contented with an economy built on transfers from the national parliament. In other words, we are too blessed to be so distressed, too anointed to be ever disappointed. However, before COVID-19 pandemic hit us, before the pandemic hit us, economists were estimating that our productive output had declined by around 1.76 billion. Tourism, our main industry outside of government services on the island of Tobago, fell by 11.2% between 2016 and 2018. And just when it seems like we were getting some success stories with our marketing of the island and we were getting a trickling of international visitors back, the COVID-19 pandemic came and brought everything to a screeching halt. So in other words, we are at an important juncture in our history and in our life. One where we need to recalibrate how we do governance. And that's why the Progressive Democratic Patriots is here. That's why this party was formed. Recently, I met a farmer at the top of the highway, just coming off of John Dial, and he had his van tray filled with pumpkins. And then he started telling me the story of having such a large yield of pumpkins that he had to traverse from Charlottesville to Crown Point in hopes of selling the pumpkins himself. And then he lamented the fact that while he's out day after day trying to get the pumpkins off his hands, that all his flavor peppers were now becoming overgrown with bush, with shrubs. And that spoke volumes to me, because it reminds me and reminds us all of the fact that although we have an abundance of resources, we have not been good stewards. And those who have been entrusted with the executive of this island, they have not been good stewards of power and privilege and of the executive either. And so when we should have had a situation where the Tobago House of Assembly takes charge or manages the supply chain all the way to the end user so that our talented farmers can concentrate on farming, when we thought our marketing department of the THA will be actively marketing Tobago agricultural produce in Trinidad that has a population of in excess of 1 million people. That has not happened. When we look around and we hear complaints about not having a functional abattoir and the fact that so much butchering is happening in backyards without any sort of quality assurance, without any certainty that health requirements are being met, when we look at the fact that there is limited support for small ruminant farmers on the island, after 40 years of a Tobago House of Assembly, then Tobago needs the progressive democratic patriots. When we look to tourism and we look at the fact that the world has gone back to community tourism via Airbnb, and we have the beautiful village that I represent of Castara that has repeatedly demonstrated how community tourism can work, yet it hasn't worked for us. Yet we have not been able to replicate that model across the island of Tobago. Yet we have not been able to, in a proper way, streamline and regulate community tourism. Then Tobago needs the progressive democratic patriots. When we think of the housing crisis on the island, where young professionals like myself must catch the auntie and the nenen, if I must be crude, must catch ass to find a place to live, cannot afford a home, cannot get a mortgage because your THA contract really doesn't give you any security of tenure. And although you are on a contract, you may be working repeatedly without ever even signing an updated physical contract. And when you look at the price of homes on the island, the cost of land keep rising. And our young professionals, people in their 20s and their 30s, who are supposed to be actively engaging the financial sector in getting mortgages to pay for a home over the rest of their working life. But that's not happening. Then we must conclude that Tobago needs the progressive democratic patriots. When we look at the challenges in education, we are many months into the COVID-19 pandemic. And for many months, we were aware that we could not have school as before. Yet, we are still struggling to get all our children on board. We are struggling to bridge the digital divide, the digital gap. We are struggling in supporting our teachers. Too many of our teachers are still on these contracts and cannot get any gratuity at the end of their contracts. And I'm not just saying it because I have lived it. I taught for 7 years, and for not one of those 7 years within that contract, I received any gratuity payments. So I know what it feels like to be a slave in a system where you are really contributing to the greater good of the community. And when we think of all of these failures and an inability to reconcile staffing in education, an inability to integrate technology into the classroom, an inability to have good and high quality textbooks for our children who can learn more about Tobago as opposed to learning Nancy's stories about Tobago, then Tobago needs the progressive democratic patriots. When we think about the fact that community cohesion is declining, is on the decline, and the fact that we are seeing upticks in petty crimes, and when we look at the fact that many of our people are now unemployed due to this pandemic, we ought to be worried about where we will go in terms of community cohesion. But remember, since 2017, the Progressive Democratic Patriots has been campaigning on a platform that says, look, we ought to put the community first. We can only develop this community, this island community of Tobago, child by child, family by family, village by village. And we have always proposed that the way we can start doing that is that when we have contracts, building contracts in communities, in villages, then those building contracts, once they are suitably sized, should really go to workers from the village, for contractors from the village, thereby empowering the villagers. But we have seen nothing remotely close to that happening on the island. And that's why we are here as the Progressive Democratic Patriots. That's why we came on board in 2017. In fact, I can tell you, when I decided to enter active politics in the last quarter of 2016, I did so because I was teaching children, I was sending them off to university, and they were returning and then asking me, "Sir, what now? What's next? Sir, things hard. Sir, I can't live in Tobago. Sir, I can't return to Tobago because there isn't much for me to do." When I looked around my community of Speyside and I looked at those young people with 2 and 3 CXC passes and trying to find a transition, an appropriate transition, so that they can get some more passes and move on and be gainfully employed, and I saw that there were limited opportunities for them, I felt that the time was ripe for me to leave the classroom and to come to the Tobago House of Assembly to school some people on community development. And I, along with my colleagues in the House, Minority Leader Mr. Duke and Councillor Dr. Faith B. Israel, we have been doing that since 2017. Since 2017, we have been trying to get the THA to regulate the tourism sector. We brought that via motion, it was rejected. We have tried in vain to get the THA to become more vociferous, more active in fighting for greater autonomy for Tobago. That was turned down. We have tried in vain to get this THA to consider a university for Tobago. They told us, yes, we have it, it's in the pipeline. But quite like most of our pipelines, it ran dry. And that promise never materialized. And so we are saying, if Tobago is to get ahead, if Tobago, as beautiful as it is, as rich as it is to actually improve on its lots, then Tobago must begin by voting in the solution. For too long, we have voted in the problem. For too long, we have thrown our hands in the air and said, what can we do? We can't do nothing else. For too long, we have been satisfied with mediocrity. But what is required now is that we ought to step boldly forward and vote for the solution. And we propose that we will be the solution. And that's why, as a party, we have not been shy about our norming processes and doing it publicly. That's why, as a party, we have been very transparent, even as we do our reflections. That's why, as a party, we have not hidden from you even our own flaws as we work on improving them. Because we believe that the only way we can get this right is with your help and with you on board. And so we have been actively campaigning and saying to you that we ought to start by developing a coalition. Because Tobago is far too small for the divisive politics that we have always engaged in. Tobago is too small for red people versus black people. Tobago is too small for them versus we. Tobago requires that we work together. And so we have always proposed that we will create a coalition of the competent and the willing. A coalition that will bring to bear the talents of all our Tobagonians. And that's why the executive of this party has mandated me to go out and to find every Tobagonian, every small party, every independent politician who believes that we can do better than we have done over the last 20 years to rock and come in, to invite them to rock and come in, because we are opening our party and opening our doors to all and sundry to rock and come in, so that together we can build a better Tobago. I do not have a copyright on all great ideas for Tobago, nor does the party have all the answers contained within its pledges to you. And that's why we need you on board. That's why we need you to be part of our party and part of the process. because we are practicing for 2021, when we will in fact create for the first time in a long time in Tobago democracy that allows for full participation from the people of Tobago. And so we want you to participate. From now, we want you to actively campaign with us. We want you to join us. So far, we have begun our screening process. Our nomination has closed, and we were overwhelmed with several people who have thrown their hats into the ring. And our process for selecting a candidate is in three parts. It involves a screening committee interviewing candidates, and the screening committee is getting ready to do that. And when that process starts, you in the public will get to see that in a transparent manner. It involves our action groups who have been actively participating in the process by vetting candidates and also by beginning fundraisers here and there so as to take care of expenses for the upcoming elections. And it also involves us doing a thorough background checks on all would-be candidates. Those three things. Because we want to ensure that when we come before you with our team of candidates, we are bringing the best. We are bringing people who are knowledgeable about the Tobago House of Assembly and how it works. We are bringing people with integrity, and as such they are PDP fit. We are bringing people who have a habit of engendering community cohesion and who are involved in their communities. We are bringing people who lead lifestyles where they have learned through their involvement with NGOs and CBOs and religious organizations or business associations how to manage and how to manage people. We are bringing to bear on this process some of the most qualified people to run this island of Tobago. Because I want to be the Chief Secretary with an executive council that works. I do not want to lead a team that can win an election but that cannot govern. We want to win this election and to transform this island. And in order for us to transform this island, it requires that we take the risk of giving someone else a chance. Now let's look at the THA finally. This year makes it 40 years since we have had the Tobago House of Assembly. 40 years, 4-0. And at the end of the 40 years, after having two groups of people running Tobago for 20 years apiece, we must seriously ask ourselves, have we achieved our very best? Have we done our very best? Or could we have done better? And I'm sure you would agree with me that we could have done better. You see, I could have simply stayed right where I was as a teacher, and many of the members of our executive committee, many of our would-be candidates could have easily decided I will stay right where I am, draw a salary and hope for the best. But no, we have decided to risk it all so that we can change this island. We have decided to throw away all comforts so that we could improve on things for this island. Because as small as Tobago is, as small as this island is, we are resolute that this island can become the greatest little island on the planet. And so we need you on board. We need you to participate. We need you to not just vote, but we need you to participate by way of helping us campaign, by way of helping us build out our mandate. And you will recognize that in the lead up to the elections, we will do everything in full view of you, the public. Even when we are updating the mandate, we will ask you via this medium to join us and to contribute and to give us your suggestions and your ideas. We have already begun talking to different sectors on the island in hopes that we could build out a plan for Tobago that will make Tobago first world in how it's governed and first world in its development agenda. And so we need you on board. You must join us. I cannot do it without you. And I want to end by saying to you that notwithstanding our difficulties, this island is an island with a penchant for being resilient. This is an island that knows what it means to bounce back from difficult times. And yes, we are going through extremely difficult times. We have had to not only experience the crippling effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, but we have had a deadly cocktail of the crippling effects of a pandemic with poor governance. And so we are saying to you, we can do better. Let us vote the solution in. And the Progressive Democratic Patriots is positioning itself as the solution. And we want you on board. And so in the next coming days and weeks, we will be coming to you, especially those of you who have been bold and brave enough to stand and speak out against the wrongs that have been happening in governance in Tobago. We are coming to you because we need you to lend your voice to this revolution. This is not a revolution with guns or sticks and stones, but this is a revolution of the mind. This is a revolution in action. This is a revolution in behavior. This is a revolution in political culture. And that's why we have always done things differently as an island. And that's why we want you on board. And so join us. Rock and come in. Don't be shy. Reach out to us. Come to our office located at the Port Mall that is open every single day, 5 days a week, between 10 a.m. in the morning and 4 p.m. in the evening. Join us. Come. Sign a membership form. Participate in an action group. Join one of our Zoom sessions where we're discussing the mandate and how we should build out Tobago. Lend your voice. Some of you have already been sending letters to the party with ideas. Send those letters. Send those solutions. Because in this upcoming election, we are not going to be focused so much on the problem that we have had for the last 20 years. We know what the problem is. The problem is big. The problem is mighty. The problem is well funded. The problem might be red. But we are convinced that as small as we are, with the might and power and inspiration of the Most High, we will be able to remove the problem and begin step by step to introduce to Tobago the solutions for a better, brighter Tobago. Come, we're doing. Let me work together now. Please, let me work together. You, me, and this entire PDP team. Let us build a better Tobago. Let us put people before politics. All of you, rock and come in. It doesn't matter where your station was before. It doesn't matter which party you supported before. It doesn't matter which party membership form you signed up before. We want you on board. And we need you. We need you. We need your voice. We need your feet. We need your hands. And above all, we need your vote when the time comes, so that we can transform this island into a better place, into a more prosperous island, into an island where you, the Tobagonian, is independent of even us, the THA, where you, the Tobagonian, will not be afraid to build out your life and not be afraid to be innovative, where you, the young man, the young lady with a university degree, you will not be afraid to return home and be innovative because your island will support you. Where you, the single mother, will sleep and rest easy at night knowing that the next day your social needs are taken care of. Where you, the young man on the block, the youth man who feels that you have nothing to vote for, that you don't need to participate because nobody ever do anything for you. I want to say to you, youth man, where you yourself can become more productive, where your dreams and your aspirations can be realized, where small villages on this island can behave like big towns and cities, where you in your social institution, whether it be a church or a football group, can begin to really impart knowledge and capacity and training to your fellow community members. But in order for us to do that, you have to join us. This is not a campaign about them versus we. This is a campaign about we, the people of Tobago. This is a campaign for people who love Tobago. And I know you love Tobago. And I know you want to put Tobago even above yourself, as I have done, as members of the PDP executive has done, as political leader Mr. Duke is now doing. We want you to do the same. Let us together put Tobago above ourselves. And when we do that, Tobago will be a better place for you, a better place for me. And sooner rather than later, I'll be able to retire from the politics as I allow others to follow suit in building out a grander Tobago, a Tobago that works not for the few, but a Tobago that works for the many. Thank you. At this time, we will engage members of the media as they can ask their questions. And members of the media, we do have with us at the press briefing today all of our executive except for our treasurer. And so you can shoot your questions. Primarily, Mr. Duke and myself will respond to the questions. But you are free to engage other members of the executive if necessary. And I think I will start with Elizabeth Williams of CCN.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Ms. Williams. There seems to be a slight delay in your speech.
Oh, hi, good morning.
Right, so I'm hearing you clear now. Go ahead.
Congratulations, Mr. Augustine. I know that the announcement this morning by the political leader, Mr. Watson Duke, is something that he has been saying, but I guess this morning he would have reinforced it. What I wanted to find out is, I know on previous occasions, before you would have held a press conference, we'll now have another press conference saying, this is what is supposed to have been said. What I wanted to know is, in terms of moving forward, and Mr. Duke stating that he will lead from behind, is it that when a press conference is held by you, we would not hear information again from the political leader that may seem to undermine what you would have stated before? And what can the people of Tobago look forward to after over 20 years of the PNM in Tobago? What is the difference with the PDP that you would say the people of Tobago should put their X and put the PDP in power?
All right, I'll ask political leader Duke to answer the first question. Part of your presentation, Ms. Williams, tapered off a bit because your internet connection seemed to have been problematic. So we'll be apologizing in advance if by chance we miss parts of your question, right? But if I'm to get you correctly, the first part of your question, you asked about seemingly conflicting information from the political leader and myself, notwithstanding the commitment previously that I will lead the team into the Tobago House of Assembly. So I think I would prefer that the political leader responds to that question, and then I will respond to the second part of your question, the second question rather, which speaks to the difference between the PDP and those who have been there for the last 20 years.
Right, thank you very much, Assemblyman and Deputy Political Leader Farley Sharpers Augustine. Liz, I want to tell you I've asked a very good question. It's a question that any good journalist would ask. It's also a provocative question, a question that seeks to you must understand, in politics, there may be different versions of the same coin. And from time to time, we maybe need to elucidate, throw light on a matter or comment on a matter further. We are not going to sit here and say that we may not have a different perspective on the same thing. The PDP is not like the PNM. We are not like the UNC. The PDP is able to have a different view on the same issue, but at the end of the day, our view on Tobago remains steadfast. The same view that Assemblyman, Deputy Political Leader Fali Chavez Augustine holds for Tobago is the same view that Councillor Dr. Faith B. Israel holds for Tobago. It's the same view that our recent candidate from Tobago West holds for Tobago, Tashia Grace Burris. It's the same view our chairman, Dr. Sean Ned, holds for Tobago, which is to build a better Tobago, child by child, family by family, village by village. We believe that every child should be treated same. Every child should be treated the same and not be treated differently. Every village should be treated the same and not differently. Every single family should be treated the same and not differently. In other words, we do not believe in discrimination. We do not believe in these sorts of things that separates status. We believe in one Tobago, and that is the core of PDP philosophy. As human beings, I may make a point that may not be well made, and so the deputy political leader has all right to throw light on the point. All right? And nothing is wrong with that. It happens anywhere you go in the world. So do not attempt to pigeonhole us and have us swear away our lives and say that we may not have a different view on something. But it is not symptomatic of any problem on the inside. It's just the way we choose to express ourselves. But at the end of the day, the core values of PDP remain resolute with all of us.
Thank you, Mr. Duke. And let me go to the second part of your question, Ms. Williams, which spoke to what's the difference between the Progressive Democratic Patriots and those who have been there for the last 20 years. In fact, I may go out on a limb and give the difference between the Progressive Democratic Patriots and all those who have been there for the last 40 years. In the first instance, the Progressive Democratic Patriots comprises a team of people who have never been in politics before. So we are not a team of has-been. We are not a team of failures. We are not a team who have been there at the executive before, and so we contributed to the failings of the executive in Tobago. We are all first-timers to this thing. We are all here for the first time saying, look, we have seen 2-3 different generations fight this battle for Tobago. Allow my generation a chance. In fact, my generation is saying, and I represent that generation well, my generation is saying, give me a chance. Give me a chance, let us try. We cannot continue doing things the same way, expecting a different result. That's insanity. Secondly, the Progressive Democratic Patriots is the most transparent party on the island. And political leader Duke spoke about it. The fact that we have before in public shared different perspectives on the same issue. Where else do you find that in this country? In this country, what you have are teams that go by the rule that whatever is said or done by the political leader or one member of the party's executive must be told by every other member. There must be no sort of difference in opinion. There must be no discussion about it. Just nod your head and say yes. The Progressive Democratic Patriots is so transparent that even our storming processes find its way in the public domain. And that does not mean that we are unstable. What it means is that we are democratic and we allow for full democratic participation within our party. And that's unlike any other party on this island. I challenge you to find another party on this island that is willing to do its reflections after a defeat at a polls publicly, you know what they all do? Huddle in a dark room, discuss it, and hope that no one will ever question them about it. You know what the Progressive Democratic Patriots did? We came to you right here on a set like this, and we discussed it quite frankly and openly with you. The third reason why we'll be different is that we are bringing to the table for Tobago ideas that have never been placed on the table before. You see, we are tired of a system where politicians have been just repeating the same old promises over and over and over again, but not really delivering. We came into office in 2017 as the new minority or the alternative government in the Tobago House of Assembly. And immediately we introduced to the body politic of Tobago protest politics. In fact, it's because we protested and we dared to jump off in the harbor in Scarborough amid the potential for sharks and danger, to protest the absence of a functioning inter-island ferry. It's because we did that Tobago can today be expectant of a new ferry. If we didn't, then all now you Tobagoans will be cattering on the port, hoping and wishing for the best. In other words, we have been out there and out front. When we recognize that, you know, our bus system, our bus service was poor, was dismal, and for those of us like myself who still must catch a car to come to town, had to struggle for transportation, you know what we did? We got up and we walked from Roxborough to Scarborough to highlight how country people are being treated. Since then, we have seen new buses purchased, new buses on the route, and we have seen a mad rush to bring some development, some physical development to the countryside, because they recognize where they have failed. And so I'm saying to you that the PDP does not just talk nice promises. Unlike other parties, we put our heart and souls into this, and we are willing to go down into the trenches with you to work on building out a better Tobago. And we are not saying that we have a magic wand that we can just wave and automatically the wand will result in everything being fixed. What we are saying is you must join us, and together let us work on our deficiencies as an island, piece by piece, and together we can get it done. We can get it done, and I tell you, the PDP is not a party that thrives in division. We are not a party that believes in nepotism. In fact, most of the people whose roofs we fix, guess what? Most of them went back behind our backs and voted PNM. Liz, you yourself interviewed one of them who was happy to say he loved his PNM, notwithstanding our party bailing his family out at a time of need, of great need. But you see, our party, we are not upset by the man exercising his democratic right, because as a party, we practice a zero tolerance on nepotism. We practice not dividing our communities and our people. We practice engaging everybody, whether you be PNM, whether you were forward, whether you were top or bottom, or the Fountainer, or whether you are Norwegian. We practice engaging you. And you see that is the most significant difference between the Progressive Democratic Patriots and our nearest competitors. Akinlabi Hola, Tobago Channel 5.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Hola.
Yes, I just wanted to know, if you could just tell us how the nomination process went and how far advanced you all are in the selection of candidates, and when can we expect to see a slate?
Right, so our formal nominations have been closed for more than a week now. The screening committee begins its work on Sunday. In fact, the screening committee has been meeting, has been agreeing on the rubric for judging and interviewing our candidates, would-be candidates. And on Sunday, they begin the interviewing of our would-be candidates. In some instances, action groups have rejected some of the nominees. In other words, action groups have said, we are not satisfied with the nominees for our area, and so we would like to go searching for a stronger candidate. And the party has allowed that, because this is a party that places its strength on the action groups down at the bottom as opposed to the executive at the top. Our party will not be using any veto power to get rid of anybody. Our party will be relying on our action groups and the members of the party to ultimately confirm all candidates. So after the interview process is done, after 12 candidates are selected, well, 11 in addition to myself, then the announcement will be made. The announcement will be made early in this month of October, because for this upcoming election, we are not going to be running an election built around glitz and glamour. We'll be running an on-the-ground campaign, and we'll be requiring all our candidates to knock on every single door in their electoral district. And so very early, we're not going to wait on our competitors, but very early, we will release our candidates, and our candidates will be asked to begin walking on the ground, touching base with everybody, and listening to the people whose votes they require. That's the kind of process that we are using. Very open, very transparent, very democratic, and that allows for active engagement and decisive engagement from members of our action groups. Next, we have Cassandra Thompson-Forbes from Guardian Media Holding.
Good morning to the panel. Good morning, Mr. Augustine.
Good morning.
I know you said your nomination process has been completed, but can you tell us the kind of support or how to put it, the kind of support that you would have gotten from the membership in relation to candidates coming forward for the THA elections? Apart from that, can you indicate if there were any uncontested seats, and would you be contesting all the THA seats as well?
Right, so let me start from your last question and come to your first. We will be contesting all THA seats, all 12 seats. And as I indicated earlier on, the party gave me a mandate to reach out to all other opposition parties on the island, all independent candidates, and to seek to get them to rock and come in and to support the Progressive Democratic Patriots. But we will be contesting all 12 seats with or without their support. Secondly, no area has been uncontested. What I can tell you is that for 3 areas, the action groups were not satisfied with the names that came forward, and so the party has given them the authority to go back to the drawing board and to seek out candidates whom they think are more electable. And that's only fair. That's only right if we're going to find the best candidates for each area. Some areas are more competitive than others. So, for example, the Bethel area, the Buku area, those areas are way more competitive than some of the other areas like Goodwood Bell Garden. And naturally so, because Councillor Dr. Faith B. Israel has been such a proficient and such a prominent councillor and such a hard worker in her community that it would appear as if no one wants to challenge her for the run for that seat. So some areas hotly contested, some areas not so much, but with very strong contestants. We suspect within the space of 2 weeks, we will be able to, in a formal way, launch all our candidates. But before we launch all our candidates, what we will do is that we will send all our candidates on the ground to begin meeting with key people in every community as one of the requirements before they are formally presented to the district. Because as I said, in this election, we are going to focus on a heavy ground game. You know, I think there's an opportune time to tell an anecdote of an experience I had back in 1996. I was still a primary school child, And I think I was around common entrance class, and I could remember a political meeting being held in Speyside on the steps of my grandfather's rum shop. It was being held by the then NAR, and Mr. Robinson was speaking. The electricity went, as is still the case here in Tobago, and what was unbelievable to me as a child is that Mr. Robinson continued speaking. One man turned on the lights from his old Land Rover, and you could hear a pin drop because everyone was listening intently to Mr. Robinson. We have gone a far way from that. I know I'm not criticizing the use of big trucks and loud music and the jam and wine politics. No, I'm not being critical of that. What I'm saying is that we have gone a far distance from true engagement with the electorate. And our electorate in this election, we believe they are demanding that we go back to basics, go back to the days when candidates ensure they knocked on every door. And that is one of the mantras for every candidate for the PDP. You have to knock on every single door. You have to engage everyone, including those who may be angry and viciously against our politics. Engage them the same way, because we are practicing for running the executive council, an executive council that will engage every single Tobagonian, including those Tobagonians who would not vote for us. I hope all of that answers your questions. All right, Mr. Hola, I think you have another question. Mr. Hola, Tobago Channel 5?
You could come back to me.
Okay.
After.
Mrs. Thompson-Forbes, is it that you still have another question?
Yes, I do. I know the issue of mudslinging was very apparent during the general elections. How do you think, or would you all be leading a different kind of campaign coming up to the THA elections? And what message would you like to send to your candidates about, the level of campaign for the upcoming THA elections?
Mudslinging happened throughout the campaign and on all sides. Let's be honest. It didn't just come from the PDP's platform. In fact, many times the PDP was flinging back mud that was thrown on our stage. But in this campaign, as I said at a press conference in August, we intend to raise the bar on our political discourse. It is unfortunate that in the last election, those who won did not really win on any real issue. All they did was to backtalk Mr. Duke every night and call UNC name. They didn't win on any solid policy platform for Tobago, and that's unfortunate. But we are resolute that we will raise the bar even higher for all of us. And so our would-be candidates, myself as the leader of the team going into the THA, our intent is to discuss solely policy issues surrounding Tobago. Notwithstanding that, we certainly are going to raise some of the flaws we have seen in governance over the last 20 years, because we are campaigning against 20 years of the same party in power. We are going to raise their flaws. We are going to highlight quite frontally the issue of corruption and the fact that those in power has never treated with any of the allegations of corruption. They have never sought remedies for areas where monies have been lost and resources have been pilfered. So we'll be raising those things. But we won't be raising them in a disparaging way. We'll be raising them in a factual way, so as to show Tobagonians that we cannot have a development agenda that works on one hand and high levels of corruption on the other hand. But outside of that, our campaign is going to be focused solely on those policy things that will make Tobago a better place. And our mandate, as I indicate to you, is being built out as we speak. Because as you may be aware, we do not do manifestos. We take a mandate from the people and we campaign on that mandate from the people. So we have a special committee that's meeting and discussing that. And via Zoom, we have, and we can engage you two, members of the media, members of the public. And I said it earlier, you can join us, members of the party, and share your ideas for the things you will want to see happen in this beautiful island of Tobago. Because it cannot just be that we come and campaign on grand ideas that we hallucinate about at nights, but it has to be we campaign on an agenda that Tobagonians want, on a dream that Tobagonians have, because we all collectively have to work on fulfilling this dream at the end of the day. So yes, to answer you in short, yes, we're raising the bar. Yes, we are going beyond where we went last election. Yes, we are a party that is growing and that is improving, and there's nothing wrong with that. Show me a party that doesn't need to grow and improve, and I would tell you that that's a wicked, evil party, and we have had it for the last 20 years. Show me a party that is willing to do introspection, that is willing to sit back, reflect, and grow and improve, and that's a party that is coming with the solution. And that's the Progressive Democratic Patriots. And that's why we are in this race. And that's why we need Tobagonians to all rock and come in. All right. I see Lois Vincent is here. And she's here via, that's Tobago, that's Newsday, Tobago, I believe. So Miss Vincent, or Guardian as well, my apologies. So Miss Vincent, do you have any questions further to those asked by your colleague, Mrs. Thompson-Forbes? Okay, we're not hearing Miss Vincent. All right, so if there are no other questions, I wish to thank you all for joining us on this live. I wish to thank you all for participating. Thank you, members of the media, members of the public. I wish on behalf of the executive of this party to remind you all that this party is not here for the flams. We are not here seeking glory for ourselves. We are here all willing to take the risk, all willing to put aside our creature comforts, all willing to lay on the line all that we own and all that we have to fight for a better Tobago. We believe, just like you, that Tobago is the most beautiful island one can find. We believe that this island has a plethora of resources that can advance the island's development. We believe in the people of Tobago. We believe in Tobagonians' capacity to develop this space. We believe even in Tobagonians that live in the diaspora and outside of the island of Tobago and their ability to contribute back to this space. But beyond that, in order for us to capitalize on such belief, in order for us to turn what we have and our assets into a workable solution for the island of Tobago, then we have to be prepared. We have to be prepared to work together. Firstly, we have to be prepared to give this generation, to give my generation a chance. I am here on behalf of my generation, saying to you that we have tried every other generation before us. We have tried them all, from Robinson all the way down to Mr. Charles. And we are saying, give our generation a chance. Give us a chance. Give us a chance to lead Tobago into this new dispensation, into this new era. Give us a chance to advance Tobago, because this island of Tobago can be and should be the greatest little island on the planet. Stay safe, Tobagonians. Remember to be cautious as you go out and as you mingle. Pretty soon, someday soon, we will all be out of these pandemic arrangements, and we will all be able to continue with life as we know it. But until then, I want to thank you, my Tobago family, for joining me. Thank you very much for joining the executive of the Progressive Democratic Patriots. Thank you very much for voting for us and making this party the third largest party in all of Trinidad and Tobago. And we look forward to forming the next executive of the Tobago House of Assembly with you as the wind behind our backs, with you as part of the process, and with you helping us to build out a better Tobago, child by child, family by family, village by village. Thank you and have a good day.